individual questions. I think Honorable Nyikal, out of the 15 minutes, you can take 5 because you are a member and you are also the petitioner. So you can go first.
Thank you, Chair. Let me also appreciate this opportunity and also appreciate the work the Cabinet Secretary has done. I think it's gone through the records well, but I'll say that therein lies the problem, that those records is where the problem is. And I'll try to be really short. I happened to be there during this period. I can actually say I was probably the only government officer who was able to move around the country at the time. And the history of IDPs created 2 kinds of IDPs. I've seen your categorization. IDPs from Central that were actually from Rift Valley, mainly, were settled in camps. I can tell you the camps. I actually established them in Naivasha 2, in Eldoret we had 2, Tabo 1, in Nairobi we had 1 Kikuyu, 1 Tigoni. We had camps in Thika, and so on. So mainly those from Central actually stayed in. IDPs from Nyanza and Western largely stayed in camps momentarily. Kikuyu, Tigoni. In Nakuru, it was basically the stadium. At the showground, those were again mainly people from Central and from Rift Valley, and they most of the IDPs from Nyanza and Western were actually integrated in their homes. Not much through government system, but basically going to stay with their relatives. Except partly Nyamira, Kisii, and also a little bit in Eldoret from Western Kenya and Tabo. Now, when Operation Rudi Nyumbani came, these people were mainly in the homes. So at the identification afterwards, the people who stayed in the camps were clear. They were there. The numbers were known. So that is the first difference that came. So if you now came to the identification and you had 3 groups, there is one group that is missing, even your people.
Our Vice Chair is come on virtual. Allow me to request her to introduce herself. Honorable Janet, we have the CS Interior. Kindly introduce yourself.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, kindly introduce yourself.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Janet Sukene, MP Turbo. Yeah. Chair, I'm sorry I did not catch a flight in the morning. I'm just traveling now.
It's okay. We have quorum and we are handling it very well. We've done a very good presentation. Hope to meet you soon. But keep listening until.
Okay, thanks. So when now you have the categories. Oh, she's still on.
Sorry, when you can't allow, ask the member who have just walked in to introduce herself.
Morning, everyone. My name is Edith Nyenze, Member of Parliament, Kitui West, and a member of this committee. I'm sorry I'm late. Thank you.
Okay, so when now you had the categories, now the people who stayed in the camps were easy to identify. People who integrated were very difficult to identify, and that's where most of the Nyanza and some of Western people are. And there's a category I haven't had. There were people who were actually resettled and land, I think, purchased, and were even given money for houses with a compensation up to about 400,000. I've not seen that category here. So that's why I'm saying you've done well with the records, but some of the records I think we may have to look at. So we may want to know more about that. And so that's where the even payment for housing up to 400,000. So we haven't seen that one here. Then, and that would not include anybody from Western at all. Those were basically people from Central Province. If we were to go back historically, you can understand that people from Central, when they moved to Rift Valley, they moved. They had nowhere to go. People from Nyanza who are in these places had a problem trying to settle people in Nyeri. They were actually told they don't belong here. So that was the issue. So now the difference came because these were easily identified. Their plight was obvious. The other people were in the homes, integrated, shared their suffering and their poverty with their people. So in my view, the identification was probably not adequate. Now, quickly, therefore, when you now come, your records also indicate this. You had some money that was not used because the people did not tap or did not have the documents. What documents were required from these people who had moved, accommodated relatives and saved their lands? What were these documents required for identification? Now, the other thing is some IDPs never up. Do we have information these people who didn't turn up, did they die? What happened to them? Or was it false records? So that issue brings the issue. When you mention, I think SEME is not even included in the list at all. So that I can tell you all the people there are therefore in what you have. In Nyanza, you talk of nobody's in IDP camps. In Nyanza, to a large extent, there were maybe Kisii and Nyamira, but there were really no integrate. In Kisii, some people even came back to Rift Valley and were in those camps. So again, do our records take care of that? And you have IDPs that were not paid. Now, with this, CS, you've done a good thing with the records, but I think the records are inadequate because when we made this petition and when I presented it, actually it had a huge number of people with names who are IDPs, or to use officially, are claiming to be IDPs. So when we go towards saying the work has been completed, it can't be completed before we either disapprove these people as fake, and that, I think the committee had the opportunity to meet their representatives, and they're very strong. So who are these people? And they are many. And when they give you their stories, it is. So either you will have to now get those people with those big documents and say, you have been paid, you have been paid, you have been paid, and you are fake, because you have chiefs and assistant chiefs who can actually verify this information. So I think there is still some work to be done there. And I appreciate your ending statement that if there are bona fide IDPs, the government is open to look at them. The question then is, which is the work that is remaining? How do we determine those bona fide IDPs who the government can still look at? Because I've told you, with the records, I can see where there are defects. If say there's nobody at all, then the records in Nyanza can't be right. There are people who didn't come up, the records can't be right. There are people who came up, but their documents couldn't prove. Chair, I appreciate the work done, but it's my conclusion that adequate work has not been done. I do appreciate the difficulty of identifying people who went to their homes and didn't stay in camps. I realize there may be people who are trying to take advantage who are not IDPs, but you have them. Conclusion. So, Chair, it is I'm grateful, but mine is that the work cannot be complete until we have a way of discussing with the large list that I brought in a way that will satisfy them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Nyikal. You remember when you came here with the petition, I assured so that you can get justice to your people. It's it can't be complete until SEME has been mentioned and we have data on SEME. So was it allow pose this question? Honorable Water, can you hear me?
Thank you for the opportunity. I can hear you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, for this opportunity. I want to thank Waziri for the good presentation. However, having met some of these IDPs 2 weeks ago from the list that he has, first, I heard him talk about how much compensation was received, and he's never mentioned anything to do with some people who are compensated 400. I don't know what the criteria was set, what kind of a criteria we are talking about, but when you listened to some of the IDPs, there is a Mr. Ndege from Karachuonyo in Homa Bay County who was in Naivasha. The guy who was locked out, locked in the house. So when we are talking about criteria, I do not know what kind of criteria a person like this who made news all over was supposed to meet in order for him to be compensated, and everybody knew that he lost 7 members of his family inside that house. So, I think some people may not have been able to meet the whatever is called criteria because of the shock and the trauma. I want to request the Cabinet Secretary, we know he's a hard worker, to kindly relook into this matter. Some people may also have taken advantage to try and forge of identifying the genuine IDPs who went through whatever they went through and are yet to be compensated. And it feels quite bad when they know that their colleagues or counterparts they were together with in some of those areas having been compensated fully by the government while they are still waiting. Neglected and discriminated against by the government. So, Waziri, kindly relook into this matter. Thank you, Chair.
Keep listening. Yeah. Honorable Kivai or Kagesi was team which visited the IDPs. Allow me to give him an opportunity to pose his concerns. Then you can take the concerns from the 3 members.
Thank you, Chairman. Let me join my colleagues in thanking you, Waziri, for the job, the work you've done so far. Yes, I can confirm I was in the team that went to meet these IDPs in Migori about 2 weeks ago. It was a of the issues have been raised there by my colleague online. In fact, most of the points I had for you have been I think going back to the people I met and what they spoke, incidentally, in that group we met, I don't know where you have classified people from Trans Nzoia, they were there. They were part of the Western group, and they were quite a sizable delegation, Trans Nzoia County. Everybody stood and talked, and we listened, and we questioned them. Listening to this issue of criteria, I really wonder whether any of those people we talked to has ever met a government official. My colleague there has talked of Bwanandege, and he talked there and then he collapsed. Because what other evidence would you want? There is a lady who gave us a moving story from Limuru, and so many others. So if those people understand how they've been missed out, because most of them were saying they have not seen an official, anybody. So that brings the question of the period that this exercise was being done. And you say in your closing remarks that all was done to sensitize this matter. I just wonder how true it is, because so I just want to join in with what Dr. Nyikal has raised, because they are the same concern, but just add that having pesa ni kitu mbaya. Nikiwa na pesa, even if I had an extra shilling, I would have given them, those people. Those Kenyans are suffering, Waziri. Thank you.
Concerns from the three members, Walter, Nyikal, and Kagesi.
Honorable Chair and distinguished to agree with the honorable members who have spoken that it is also my view that we still have some work to do. SEME is not included. We do not have records that we had profiled IDPs from SEME who met the criteria and were left out, but that is something we can look into. As I said, the matter cannot be closed at any time. It is a live matter for as long as Kenya exists. It's part of our ugly history. We must move towards closure, and whenever new evidence emerges, we will deal with it. Honorable Chair, it is true also, as stated by one of the members, that a few IDPs were paid 400,000, and it is true I did not include that in my categorization, because the few cases of payment of 400,000 was cost, or those cases were justified by very peculiar circumstances which can only be explained in a case-by-case basis. But it is true, as the member stated, as the member for SEME. Honorable Chair, it is also true, from my own knowledge as a Kenyan, that there were very elaborate press reports of a Mr. Ndege who suffered huge losses, including death of almost the entire family in Naivasha, if my recollection serves me right. I'll be surprised if such a person was displaced wherever he is in this country and has not been resettled or compensated, because I read graphic details of the story of Mr. Ndege and his family. I want to assure you, Chair and members, that that is a case that I want to take it up with my officers, because it's a case which is in the public domain. Sometimes certain things that come to our knowledge should not be subjected to to the strictures of where is the proof. I remember very vividly a fellow who had been burnt, the face was burnt, every part of his body was scarred, and he claimed to have lost all his children, and I think his 2 spouses or something like that. So that is something I want to commit to take it up as a follow-up of this petition. Chair, with regard to Trans Nzoia is in Rift Valley. That's why we didn't have any statistics, because the petition was asking for IDPs in Nyanza and Western region. Otherwise, we are willing to, if there are specific issues around Trans Nzoia, we can address them as a follow-up of this interaction. Finally, Honorable Chair, I want to assure this committee that we are open to ensuring that all Kenyans get justice, and that no Kenyan is treated differently from other Kenyans for whatever reason. And therefore, we will continue getting engaged, and we want to request for the cooperation of members, the support of the committee, the support of the National Assembly as representatives of the people, to continue dealing with these things until we achieve complete justice for every person in our country and close this chapter that has scarred our nation's history. Finally, Chair, is also to agree with some of the members who have raised the issues that this space of IDPs, we are also aware as security managers that this space has been invaded by so many imposters and people who want to benefit from a process by presenting fake narratives, fake stories, and therefore we'll be careful as much as we want closure, so that our people who are not qualified internally displaced persons do not use this process for unjust enrichment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, CS. Honorable members, because of time, we have another petition which Waziri will be handling, and we would request we take that minutes so that we can release you. Waziri, a few things have come out, and I want to...
On our procedural issue, Chair, unfortunately, the second petition that you're referring to doesn't seem to have come to our attention. So I beseech you, Chair, if you could clarify what that petition is, because we only had this petition. It could have been a communication breakdown. We are happy to return before this committee another time, but at the moment we are not seized of a second petition.
Okay, Waziri, I will get to that. In concluding the matter of the refugees in Western and Nyanza region, Waziri, we've listened to you very carefully, your report. You have the information, you have the data, the statistics, and I know you are talking from a point of reports handed over to you by your predecessors. And during that time, it was murky. Things were not clear. As in, you see an helicopter flying in an area which is not clear. Sometimes we ask ourselves, what happens when the dust settles? At that time, people were trying to be compensated. Things were trying to be settled down, but there was still dust covering. Now dust has settled. The dust settles down is where we are now. I think Honorable Nyikal, because if you touch on Nyanza and you don't touch on Nseme, and it's very clear we had Dege was the face of this post-election violence, and if Dege has not been compensated up to now, for heaven's sake, it is very clear there are several Kenyans. Yes, we know there are people who try to get compensation as refugees, and the government has enough infrastructure and system to deal with those people. But I'm happy, as a lawyer, you've indicated that human rights issues cannot be closed. So whoever had put down that this matter has been closed, I'm happy to hear that you've opened it up to look into it. So I believe we can leave it at that now that the government has opened this matter up, and the government has the requisite tools to identify and see who was really affected and was not compensated, who is trying to lie to be compensated. There are people who got 400,000. I would also want to know, in getting 400,000 when Mr. Ndege has not yet been compensated. So we leave it at
order, Chair.
Order, Chair. You can't tell.
It would be unfair, Chair.
Maro, I've not given you the mic.
Yes, please do.
We had 2 points of order. Can allow me to finish the flow of what I was trying to say? Then Maro, I'll give you an opportunity. Are very concerned. We have serious concerns. So members will try to summarize. So
thank you, Chair. The reason, Waziri, why I'm insisting on bringing up certain issues is so that your records are accurate. It is only out of accuracy that you are going to conclude this matter conclusively. Waziri, if you look at your table 1, it is reported that Siaya County total amount reversed is 0, having received 61,320,000. But on your breakdown, on your table 2, Waziri, you'll note that Siaya on breakdown there is a column that says number who failed to appear for payment. And this number is quite substantial. It is 1,608. And in your very own column, it says that each was to receive 10,000 shillings. So if they did fail to appear, then it would therefore mean, Waziri, that that money is available for them when they do appear. And therefore, the first bill that says that total amount that was reversed as appearing as zero is therefore not true. Secondly, Waziri, last parliament, the 12th parliament, I sat in the committee of special funds. One of our responsibilities was to go to Rongai, Nakuru County, and Molo and Njoro. It was about a land settlement fund. And land settlement fund was the fund that government used to compensate IDPs. As we speak, Waziri, and I want you to kindly go and check this, so many of those IDPs are still staying in IDP camps. There was a good effort to remove them from the camps where they were housed in tents, and then there was effort to put them in camps that were more dignified, and they were given land that they needed to go and till. That matter, unless it was solved yesterday, it's still live. We went to these farms, they are staying in camps. Kindly, Waziri, when you do retreat, kindly go and have a look at that, so that when you are concluding IDPs, matters IDPs, it's totally concluded. I want to appreciate Honorable Nikal, who has alluded to some of our cultures. Waziri, I come from Korea. In your report, it says totally that there was no Korea, either Korea East or Korea West, who suffered this indignity of post-election violence, a matter which is not true, because in Dr. Nikal's petition, several Korea people have also expressed interest that the government needs to compensate them. I am not maybe going to speak too much, because some of them are quite emotional. Those that were cut by power source and brought to Korea, it is impossible to say that nobody got affected. Waziri, I also want to tell you a bit of our culture. A Korea person is extremely proud. Extremely proud. When they suffer these kind of things, they go back home. And usually what happens is that a neighbor, a brother, or something, they'll give you way so that you settle in dignity. A Korea you'll not find in an IDP camp. And for that reason, and there are so many of such cultures who opted to just go back home. And the very terminology, Operation Rudi Nyumbani, defeated the whole idea of compensation. Because if it's an Operation Rudi Nyumbani and already people have left and gone back and they have been given space to stay in their homes, then again that element of compensation would then miss that point, or they would miss out in that process. Some of them, Waziri, as you know, we stay along the border. Probably some of them found refuge there, and having gone through that kind of trauma, probably took so much time for them to come back. And when they did come back, it was said that the program is closed. So, Waziri, I plead with you that all this, every Kenyan got affected, but they took the effects differently. Everybody, some even helped government. I'll tell you, and I want to thank you for coming to Isibania, is it 2 weeks ago? The young man called Mwangi, who was brutally murdered in Isibania and therefore caused all that you saw there, is one of the people who the people of Korea integrated. When the IDP, the post-election violence was happening, Kuria became a safe haven. And that is why there's so many people from central Kenya who are residents of Isibani and Kuria. He came as a young man around that time and worked his way bottom up to become what he became, and for that is why the people of Kuria were very emotional when he was killed, having come from such a background. So Waziri, we have a lot of things to say about this thing. I think the bottom line, Professor Nikal, is that we do have data that appears to be good data to close a case, but I don't think, Waziri, that this is conclusive. It is not conclusive at all. And Waziri, as I conclude, there are many, and I really appreciate the way you put it, that it is not only IDPs out of post-election violence, any indignity that causes our people to be displaced, you be willing, and indeed the Constitution envisages that they need to be addressed. And that is why, equally around the same time you came to Kuria, we had another incident. We have so many issues that are bedeviling this country around that. People being displaced from their farms, from their original homes, and then they are settled or integrated within their own either relatives or friends. And all these are IDPs. And Waziri will be coming to you so that you can help us and also help this country settle itself and live with itself. I thank you very much, and sorry for taking too long.
Thank you, Honorable Marwa. Let me, Honorable Kandia.
Thank you, Chair. I think I want to also congratulate the CS for giving us a very comprehensive statement on this issue of IDPs. Mine is a very simple one. It has to do with Kenyans not forgetting what happened in 2007, 2008. What measures are you putting in place so that our Kenyans don't forget what happened in 2007 and 2008, especially in making sure that we don't have a repeat of what happened in 2007?
Yeah, Honorable Caleb.
Thank you, Waziri, for your elaborate and on-point presentation. You are a super Waziri, and I know the petitioners' prayers will be dealt with. One question. You've said that those people who were supposed to be compensated, and one reason or another, they failed to appear. Is it an ongoing process? Because since 2007, have they been compensated? Or if they appear now, will they be compensated? My question is it an ongoing process for compensation? Or when they appear, will they be compensated? Question number 2. Do we have funds in the humanitarian fund? Now that we have a petitioner who has petitioned and he wants his people compensated, do you have that kind of fund to compensate the IDPs? If not, are you planning to sort a cabinet statement so that some funds are released for the petitioners' people to be compensated? Thank you.
Okay, was Honorable Edith. Yeah.
Thank you. Let me take this time to congratulate the Waziri for the hard work. You are doing well, and congratulations. My concern, although you have said that the issue of IDPs should be it's a life matter, I'm just wondering whether there was for this particular one, for 2007, 2008 post-election violence IDPs, was there a set period of time on when to identify the IDPs? Because sometimes it can be a challenge even to the government to keep on settling people. So my concern is whether there was a set period. Then for the National Consultative Coordination Committee, the committee which was dealing with the IDPs, is it still operational? And what is its status? Thank you.
Okay, Waziri, you can take that.
Thank you. Honorable Chair, if you allow me, before I answer the latest queries from the honorable members, that matter of the second petition, I've just been told that a letter was received this morning.
Waziri, let's conclude with this one.
Yeah.
Then we will finish with the second one.
Yeah, I just wanted to amend.
I agreed.
I wanted to amend what I said earlier. That we had not received.
Allow me to say.
Yeah.
Let's conclude with the refugee thing.
Okay.
Then we will have a 5-minute discussion on that petition before we close.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. I stand guided. Chair, I agree with the member who has said that there is a discrepancy between the table. I think the member for Kuria East. A discrepancy between the table, the first table, and the details on Siaya. To that extent, I agree. There is that inconsistency which I'm willing to look at. However, on the question of those who did not appear, whether or not, if they appear, they will be compensated. Our assumption is that they were not bona fide claimants, because if you make a claim, a notice is issued that the process of settling that claim is ongoing and you don't show up. Yet, on the other hand, we have had cases of fake documents, imposters in camps and other places. Our conclusion, our presumption, therefore, is that we assume that that claimant was not bona fide and they chickened out from the process. That was our reasonable assumption. With regard to the camps in Rongai, again, as I have said, that the matter cannot, a human rights matter cannot be closed, because the statute of limitations do not apply to the respect for and the protection of fundamental rights and freedoms of the individual. They are entrenched and they are perpetual. You cannot say up to from here to here we can, but from here, if you don't enforce your rights now, you can't enforce them later. That's not available. It's not lawful. With regard to the matter, again, which I think was raised by the chair himself on the 400,000, the purpose, and that's why some were given 10,000, others 25,000, others 50,000. Part of the assessment was to answer to the question of the nature of the loss. And the nature of the loss was influenced by factors like the kind of shelter which this person was displaced from, what kind of shelter, what size of land, because the purpose of the program on compensation is to ensure restorative justice. So a person who has minimal losses cannot get the same as somebody who has extensive losses. In fact, and I want to say perhaps the compensation was not up to value, but at least you need a criteria, again depending on the size of loss, the size of damage, and that's why the few that got 400,000 got that amount of money. With regard to the assertion by the member for Kuria East on people from Kuria East or Kuria West constituency, who are in the list the Honorable Nyikal, we will study that list and subject it to the same criteria. And if they meet the criteria, they are genuine people. They can be ascertained they were displaced, and that they have proof of loss or damage. We will also treat them like the other cases. The member for Baringo Central, a very fundamental issue, which I think is an issue for our national discussion as various stakeholders in our national project of building a nation. And the member asked, what measures have we taken as the country's security managers to make sure that this ugly past of what happened in 2007, 2008 does not recur? And I want to respond by pledging to the member and also to the committee that what happened in 2007, 2008 should never to recur again. If Kenya did not learn from 2007, then it shall never learn. So what we are doing at the moment is to, first of all, acknowledge that what happened during that year is a result of two things. One is the culture of impunity, and two is the culture which we are gradually building in this country, generally across various parts of the country, generally across political formations, and that is the culture of violent resolution of grievances. The resolution of grievances, whether political grievances, economic grievances, of unemployment, political grievances, or whatever differences. And so the measures we have taken in this administration is to implement the directives that the President has given us to depoliticize the machinery of the country that handles security and remove it from politics of whatever type, including politics of the ruling party. Because when you politicize the instruments of state for national security, you make them impotent to deal with national security threats, especially when those threats emanate from violence and disruptive resolution of political differences, because already the organs of national security will have taken sides. In most cases, they'll have taken sides in favor of the government of the day. We are very clear in our mind, it is the policy of the government that all the organs of national security must stay out of politics. And we are not allowed to process the politics of either the government side, to process the suppression of politicians who do not come from the party that is the governing party. Security machinery of the state. Number two, enforcement. Honorable Chair, the reason why we have had cause the kind of things that were caused by political rhetoric in 2007 through incitement, and nothing happens. Nothing happened. We were unable to address the issue. So the issues are still underlying, but we will make sure we will not. That's why we are very ruthless. Any leader of whatever nature, social leader, religious leader, political leader, violent resolution of any dispute, however genuine that dispute is, we will crush those people by enforcing the law ruthlessly against them, whoever they are, whether they are from the government side or from the opposition side. And that's why you've seen some of the incidents we have seen, including the violation of Isibania police station by members of the public who actually had genuine concerns about the performance of the police and other security agencies in Migori. But the solution is not to overrun a police station and break into the armory and start freeing several cases like those. We have had the burning down of tea picking machines in Kericho and Bomet, again through incitement of leaders and impunity. The grievances around tea picking, but the solution is not to destroy property and block highways where patients are using through ambulances ferrying patients are blocked simply because you have a problem with a multinational corporation. And that applies to every other dispute of whatever nature. So those are the measures we are taking. Never again will this country be allowed to slide into anarchy. We will stop the anarchists before they destroy the country. And it doesn't matter whether those anarchists are pro-government or anti-government. Honorable Chair, lastly, the member for, I think, Kitui West, I hope I got the constituency right, the Honorable Mrs. Nyenze, she has, I think there was a question on the timelines, whether there were timelines. It is true there were timelines. For administrative purposes, you know, you can't, for example, if you're processing post-election IDP compensation, you have to say, okay, can all those who are affected, can we know who are affected so that you organize for budget and compensate them? So we have timelines, but as I said at the beginning, Chair, those timelines are administrative timelines to ensure efficiency in service delivery. It doesn't amount to closure of the subject matter, because you cannot close human rights, enforcement of human rights. And very finally, the committee, all the apparatus of the states, let me put it this way on IDPs, because we keep on having different structures, different times, are in place. So there is no institutional gap in terms of addressing the plight of IDPs. And very finally, I think the question was asked about the humanitarian fund. I think we had a legal lapse somewhere, some action that government was supposed to have done to operationalize the humanitarian fund. I want to report to this committee that last month I surrendered 2 tranches of money in 2 accounts. These are monies that were supposed to go to the humanitarian fund, but the money has been lying dormant for 5 years in the bank, and therefore the National Treasury asks us to surrender. I remember one figure was 248 million, another figure of about 241 million, so in total about $500 million shillings, which was dormant. That money was dormant for 5 years, and according to the rules of the the National Treasury. Since the humanitarian, there was an institution which was supposed to be operationalized to expand, to assist in expanding those funds. It had not been done, and I take responsibility for that. We had to surrender the money, but we have already initiated legislative steps, which will be coming before you shortly, to operationalize that organ, to make sure that the money for the humanitarian fund can be spent lawfully to assist people who are bona fide and who should get the protection of the state from displacement. I thank you.
Chair.
Order members. Honorable Caleb.
Yes. Waziri, there is one question that maybe I didn't get it clear or you didn't answer, is the bona fide beneficiaries who didn't appear when the time of compensation, and they met all the criteria. Is it an ongoing process of compensation? Are you going to compensate them, or the exercise was blocked or locked? Were they locked out, or will they be compensated when they appear?
Mr. Chair, I answered, if I may, I answered that question. I said that program, Operation Route in Nyumbani, was closed. It's an administrative program. But any human rights issues that are still outstanding are not closed. That's how I answered that question. But the program closed because it was supposed to be time bound. You cannot keep it, in perpetuity. But the issues of IDPs is a perpetual matter. It cannot be closed by statute. It can be closed by administrative time periods. Thank you.
Yeah, Honorable
Chair, I know after this you will go into the next one, and I'll be leaving. I want to thank you once again. I like the process, the way it has gone, the way it is going. I also want to thank the CS for saying it cannot be closed. The program can close, but the essence, and that it means it will be opened. But I just want to add one more thing that you have not touched. We probably had imposters, natural. But I think during the process, there are also some irregularities that actually involved officers that were actually handling the matter, that may have been responsible even for the inaccuracies that we have seen. And I think when you go back to, you can say, yes, I saw all this. I released those guys from mortuaries. The sick ones, I went there, I went to hospitals. It was terrible. I saw people chasing each other. Being a doctor can let you pass. I could pass. So it was I even told people, some of this, we will go to ICC. They laughed. But this is where we are. But thank you again. My constituency, but it is the gap wherever it may be in the whole process. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, CS.
Thank you. Let allow us we close together. You are a friend of this committee today, so it's unfortunate we can't allow you to run away before we conclude. Honorable members, CS, I think as we come to the conclusion of this matter, a few things have come out, and that is what I would want to sum up. First is 2007-2008, the government by then approached this resettlement program through the Rudi Nyumbani program, and when the Rudi Nyumbani program timelines closed, they closed the matter. But it has been unveiled through the wisdom of the CS and this committee that matters of human rights through our local law, that is Kenyan law, and international statutes, matters of human rights cannot be closed. So the issue of resettlement of people who are adversely affected in 2007, 2008 post-election violence has been reopened. Let me say that. And the Minister for Interior has agreed to take full charge of that, so that because we have been on the ground as members to listen to these IDPs, Mzendege is alive today. Mzendege was actually the picture of the whole post-election violence, locally and internationally. And Mzendege has never been assisted by government in any way. It means a lot has not been done. The closing was irregular. Waziri has mentioned depoliticization of these programs. Whoever had tried to politicize the resettlement of IDPs, I think with this government and Waziri, we can comfortably say that the program has been reopened and is depoliticized. So it will get issues right. Secondly, Waziri, as you know, and you are veteran in what we are doing, if you are sitting on my chair, I believe you would have done better than I've done, because you've done it, you have more experience. But some cases would want immediate action. From where I sit as a chair, the end result of this process is a report to Parliament. And I know one of the proposals we'll make to Parliament is we will open it up for discussion on the floor, because you have had members have a lot of interest on this matter. We can't just do a closed report. We will have to open it to the floor for discussion by members. Then if there is any thing that Waziri you would want, because part of the recommendations, we can have policy issues, we can have budgetary issues. If you feel you may need some money to, between now and then, you need some budget to resettle the likes of Mzendege, you have an opportunity to come through this petition in our report so that the Parliament can approve that. If it's something to do with legal, something to do with a legal, we may need to advise for a legal statute, some law to be enacted to govern this. Waziri, this is an opportunity to get that done. So we'll keep engaging with you on this matter. Kindly, as you have said, let the matter of resettlement of IDPs open under your office. Let it remain depoliticized, as you put it, and kindly take up the issue of Mzendege personally. If you can take it to the president, the better. But I know you have the capacity to handle Mzendege. You can't lose two wives and 7 kids and become the picture of the whole thing. And now, up to date, you have not been assisted in any way. Where is humanity, Waziri? I think, though government is perpetual, but some things which were done by previously, you guys in government have to take it serious now and get it done. So allow me, Waziri, to close that matter at that point. Then we move to the next issue. And before I would want to put it to you that a letter was sent on 6th March inviting you to come to this committee for a petition on an expenditure which was done under Article 223, where money was spent without approval of the control of budget and the rest. The matter was sent to 2 committees. The petition came to us, and the regularization of the expenditure went to the Budget and Appropriations Committee. The Budget and Appropriations Committee, there were about 9 items of expenditure which were done under Article 223, and one was the spender was the Minister of Interior, but the Budget and Appropriations Committee agreed with the expenditure by the Minister of Interior. So you have few issues to answer around that. We had done a letter on 6th of March. Your office responded on 14th March saying the CS was not available. Then we did a reminder on 14th April, and we've not gotten a response up to now from the reminder. Then yesterday, after our discussion, you remember I indicated to you that you have several issues which needs to be handled by this committee. So we agreed, we remind you on this 223. If you have time, you can respond. But it's clear we don't have time for you to respond on that matter of 223. So you can say something about it. Then, yeah, we close.
Chair, thank you. And I want to apologize to the committee for the previous invitation, which we were not able to honor. The date you have given, Chair, 6th of March, when the committee wrote to us seeking us to appear before you, was one of the most difficult periods that we had in the country, because it was at the height of the North Rift security crisis, where banditry had run amok, and I was perpetually out of office throughout, and I really apologize. I could not have made it that time. Also, 14th April, then that is actually when Shakahola happened, and so forth and so on. So I'm really sorry, and I want to commit that I am available at the invitation of this committee to come and dispose this matter within the next 2 weeks. We can get a date. I will honor it, and that's all what I have to say, Chair. But since this is my last space to address you, I just wanted to thank you for the courtesy that you have extended to me, you and your committee, and I'm very happy to be back before former colleagues and people we have worked with before I went into this other side. Chair, I thank you. And
why the drafters of the Constitution are very clear that the membership of the Commission should include the 3 officers. So, just to sit down in a meeting, which is legal, as a commission, and transact their business. So, I totally agree with you that the Riot Act that you have read to them, these are people who are failing to do their work. This is uncalled for. It should not be there in the first place. I totally agree with you, sirs. That is my comment.
Thank you, Chair. I want to also to say something about this issue, Honour Chairman. First of all, I want to thank the Minister for coming out very clearly. I wish it came about 2-3 weeks ago. To me, this is firefighting. And firefighting requires the machines to put off fire. Now that we have put off fire on our city, we now need to go back to our boardroom and discuss these details. There's nothing actually which is difficult. And I'm very sure what you have done as a minister, you have given a very clear direction. People should listen. But as somebody said here, we need to also, while looking at the entire constitution, because the problem is the constitution, we need to look at where the minister comes in. You don't need to be a firefighter. We need to have some some authority to chip in wherever there's a problem, especially in terms of policy. But I'm very happy with what you told us, and we hope this will stop our officers in trying to clean their dirty linens in the public, which was uncalled for, and it must stop. It's not only for this ministry, but for the entire government and the Kenya Kwanza government, which is trying to present a different picture of working together and serving the people. Thank you.
Chair, I'm searching for a copy of the Constitution. So, Chairman, my position in terms of when I look at the provisions of Article 246, and in particular Sub-Article 3, against what is in Article 245, as read together, or more particularly Sub-Article 245(4)(c), brings me to the conclusion that there is nothing requiring interpretation here. There is just nothing requiring interpretation here. To the contrary, Chair, we have a situation where the Inspector General is encroaching the mandate of the National Police Service Commission. And I personally regret that we have a situation where a matter as clear as this, Chair, are we safe? I always fear when there is a lot of noise around the Chair. Of an independent commission. And I wanted, Chair, that when we deliberate on this with the Cabinet Secretary, we ask ourselves why the National Police Service Commission was created. We have situations where people are being recruited based on favoritism. We had situations where people were being promoted based on who you know. We had Makondes in the police service, people being recruited today and they are top there, bosses of their trainers yesterday, and then we had people stagnating. We have situations of people who are being transferred to places and they are stuck there for eternity. And here in this very committee, I've told you about my own brother in Bonny Forest for the 8th year. I'm waiting for the Inspector General to remove him from there. Despite the law saying within 3 years you must move, he can't move because the Inspector General is encroaching this mandate. Chair, I have a police officer who was awarded the best overall in the last GSU recruitment, has not been promoted to date. Why? Because the Inspector General is encroaching the mandate of a team of people, which includes him, who should, properly discuss who should be promoted or not. And Chair, I wanted to say that is the reason as to why we created the commission.